come on up. We're getting ready to start in just a minute.
Any particular order? Alphabetical by middle name. Elizabeth.
Started. Welcome to our nonpartisan school board candidate forum for the Hudson School Board election coming in April. On behalf of the Hudson School District parent groups, we want to thank you for taking time to come out this evening. Again, if you have questions that come up in your mind while we're going through and having the candidates answer their questions, feel free to flag down one of our parent group members or sneak up to the front and grab one of the cards on the stage. At this time, we would like to remind you to silence your cell phones, and we would like to welcome our moderator, Mr. Michael Brose, who will explain the format for tonight's forum.
Thank you. Good evening again, and welcome to the 2023 Hudson School Board Candidate Forum. My name is Mike Brose. I will serve as the moderator for this forum. There are 2 seats open for this year's spring school board election. Be held on April 4th, I believe. There are 4 candidates. They're seated here at my right. The candidates, as they will appear on the spring election ballot, are Megan Rosowski, Heather Logelin, Randy Lawson, and Aaron Gerlach.
Look at that. For you.
How about that, huh?
Off to an okay start?
Oh, yeah.
So here are the ground rules that were given to the candidates before this forum. Each candidate will present an opening statement of 3 minutes. A question and answer period will follow with written questions submitted by the audience. At any time, audience participants here are encouraged to raise their hand, and a volunteer will find you. You can submit a written question to them. They will then deliver it up here to the podium. The same question will be presented to all 4 of the candidates. Questions that pertain to one candidate, we'll try to weed them out, but if there's a question that pertains to one candidate, it will not be asked. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to respond. We have timekeepers in the front row down here who will be alerting the candidates when there are 30 seconds remaining on their 2-minute answer period and when it's time to stop. The question and answer period will end at 8:15 p.m. And after that, each candidate will be given an opportunity to present a 3-minute closing statement. With that, I'm going to turn this over to the 3-minute opening remarks, and we're going to go in the same order as they are seated, left to right, your right to left, I guess. And begin with Megan Rosowski. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a Polish name. They get butchered. Is this on? Okay.
Go.
Do we need it? I think. Okay. So hi, my name's Megan Rosowski. Thank you for being here tonight. Want to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in River Falls, Wisconsin, so not too far away from here, where I attended public schools K through 12 and got a great education there, starting in a small elementary school, Greenwood Elementary. I then went on and went to college, got a bachelor's degree in economics at Carleton College, and then I earned a master's in public policy at the Humphrey School at the University of Minnesota. Since that time, my career has focused primarily on higher education policy, research, and analysis. So I'm a big numbers and data nerd. So I'm used to being the person like behind the scenes, crunching the numbers and sharing the data, and not as used to being here talking in front of everybody. So this is newish for me. So I live in St. Joe with my husband, and we have 2 daughters. My daughter Sharka is in 2nd grade at Holton, and my daughter Rosa is going to be 3 very soon. She would want you to know that. I started to get more involved in what's going on in the school district, where more discussion was coming up about closing Willow and Holton elementary schools, and I started to pay more attention to what's going on. Met a lot of great parents, getting together, talking about this, started advocating for our schools, got to go to more school board meetings, see what was going on, and I thought, wow, I'd really like to be more involved in what's happening here. I'm really passionate about education and the role it plays in providing opportunities for everyone to be able to follow a career path that aligns with their interests and their skills. And in my work, I work at the Minnesota Private College Council, which is a consortium of 18 private nonprofit colleges. I serve on a lot of working groups with the state of Minnesota that look at sort of the K-12, higher ed, workforce pipeline, looking at what our economy needs, where are there going to be gaps, what are the high demand jobs, nurses, welders, HVAC technicians, construction, teachers. Do we have enough people in the pipeline to fill those jobs? Because these are so crucial for our economy, for our communities, that we have the workers that we need. And all of that starts in K-12. All of that starts in our schools here in Hudson. And I just want our schools to provide the quality education that every kid needs, so that all of our kids can feel safe and happy in school and learn and launch into the life that's great for them and then great for our community. Thanks.
Heather Logelin.
I have an older microphone. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thank you for taking on the role of MC this evening, and thank you, parents, for pulling this together. I think the reason that so often, although we have an exception, but folks don't run for school board, when they have young kids, is because it is some of the busiest times of your life. So thank you for all the work that you put into being on the PTO and organizing forums like this. So I have had the honor of serving on the school board for the past 6 years. My interest in running for the school board actually was piqued quite a while ago. I grew up in a small town in southern Minnesota, and my parents were both public school educators. And they let me know when I was kind of contemplating future paths that they did not think I had the constitution to be a classroom educator, and I would need to find a different way to impact young lives if that was something I wanted to do. So I have ended up, I went away to college and ended up coming back here because I realized I was a Midwesterner at heart, and ended up moving to Hudson because I recognized I was a small town girl at heart. So Hudson has been my home now for 18 years, and I am really lucky in that I now have a job that keeps me focused here in Hudson and here in the Valley, really working on bringing people together to connect resources and passions with needs. And there's a parallel between that work and the work that members of a school board get to do. Over the past 6 years, I've had a chance to do some professional development as a school board member. And those resources are there. So if we end up with 2 brand new school board members, there are great training resources provided by both the district and the state, but have really come to understand, and there's a lot of research on this, about what effective school boards do best. And the answer to that question is they govern. They stay focused on the high-level visionary work that boards are charged to do, that effective school boards understand and use data. They make student-centered decisions that are driven by this data. They align and sustain resources. They recognize that supporting and retaining great staff is one of the biggest drivers to a great district and great outcomes for our kiddos. And they also recognize that to be effective, they need to engage and communicate with the community. That's the work of the school board. It's that visionary, policy-driven accountability work. My experience professionally as a leader in the nonprofit sector, I think, has really prepared me well for that, although I am always learning and growing. But I do really enjoy the work that the board gets to do, where we hear from school leaders and try to hear more from those closest to the classroom, try to hear more from our teachers and our staff about what's really happening in our district, where things are going really well, and where we might need to think about realigning and redirecting resources. So that's my passion. I support public schools. I've had a chance to attend private, public, and parochial schools. We have a great public school system here in Hudson, and I'm happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Randy Lawson.
Hi, I'm Randy Lawson, and I am running for school choice, parental rights, and fiscal frugality. With regards to school choice, I have noticed that, well, actually the school board meeting this week, we found out that 1 out of 8 students in the Hudson School District are being educated in private schools or being homeschooled. And I think one of the civil rights issues that we need to be addressed in the 21st century is the hostile environment that the public schools are creating against families who have traditional values and religious values that aren't being addressed in the public schools. And the social compact that we created when public schools, when we created public schools, has been broken. Wisconsin happens to be the very place where public schools were first instituted, and they were instituted in the Northwest Ordinance. And in the Northwest Ordinance, it says, religion, morality, and knowledge being necessary for good government and the happiness for mankind, schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. And yet we have 1 out of 8 students in this school district whose parents feel like they're not getting the moral, religious education that they were entitled to with that moral contract, the social contract in the Northwest Ordinance. I'm also running on parental rights. We have what the school board refers to as controversial issues in our curriculum. And what I'm finding is that when there's a controversial issue, the parents aren't shown what the controversial piece of the topic is. They're told what the books they might be reading that might be controversial. Parents need to see exactly what the controversial stuff in the curriculum is, not just that there is controversial stuff. And they need to be able to opt in if they want their children to get it, rather than opt out when they're not even told what is really in it. And thirdly is fiscal frugality. And the school district, in my opinion, needs to learn how to do more with less. And so we've got to figure out how to run our budgets so that we can do things like keep 2 neighborhood schools open without having to borrow money to do it.
Thank you. Erin Gerlach.
I'm going to read a story that I have about mine, so I'm not going to be as versed as they are up here. My name is Erin Gerlach. My family has strong roots here in the Hudson community. I have lived in Hudson almost my entire life. I attended St. Patrick's Catholic School, grades K through 8. I am an alumni of Hudson High School. My husband and I chose to build our home here and raise our 3 children in the community that we love, right down the road from Rivercrest School. Our oldest daughter attended K through 5 there and went on to the Hudson Middle School. Our middle daughter also attended Rivercrest K and 1, where she started off great, but in first grade she was being bullied. And the bully situation affected the entire classroom to the point of the school counselors were not only in there counseling our children, but the entire class without our parent knowledge. At the same time this was happening, our family encountered the boundary lines being redrawn. The district relocated our family from the school that we chose and built our home around, and guess what? The kid that was bullying was relocated too for the same boundary reasons. When we wrote our case to the stay at Rivercrest to the school board, no action was taken. In fact, we had to hire a psychiatrist just to write a letter of separation to the school and the bus company so they would recognize it and separate these kids because my daughter was coming home with bruises on her body. My daughter was reluctantly moved to Hudson Prairie, and everything was okay over there. This was also the year, though, that COVID hit and closed all the schools. So when people ask me why, and I've had a lot of whys on this, why are your kids going to Trinity Academy? That is my reason, because my child needed to have stability and friends after what she had been through. My kids now choose to stay at Trinity because of their friends. I enjoy seeing the downtown community every day that I drive my kids to school, watching the families walking their kids to St. Patrick's, to Trinity, to Willow River. It's a very welcoming community downtown. It really brings a smile to anyone's face who drives down there in the morning time. Our oldest attends the Hudson High School, where all of my children will eventually attend. I'm passionate about our kids getting the education and the support that they need in order to thrive and prepare for their futures, and other children who are struggling as well. Aside from my full-time marketing job, I volunteer my time in the community as an events coordinator and a fundraiser for different groups. I'm used to working within tight budgets and getting creative where I need to make big things happen. I'm currently the president of the PTO for Trinity Academy because I'm an involved parent and I enjoy connecting with other families in the community, and for all of those reasons, I am running for the Hudson School Board. It is important that our school board is transparent and represents the parents and the taxpayers of Hudson by listening and working with them to ensure the best possible outcome for our community. We need to work together to support our children.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with the questioning. I have been provided 8 or 9 questions that were pre-submitted or as people assembled here this evening. And I'm making no decision about what order they're asked. I'm going to ask them in the order that they're handed to me. The order of questioning initially will be in the same order that the opening remarks were just given. Ms. Rosowski, Ms. Logelin, Mr. Lawson, and Ms. Gerlach. And then they will alternate throughout the course of the night. So we'll begin 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll go 4, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth, to give everybody an opportunity to go first and to be heard last. And then when we get to about 8:15, as I mentioned before, we'll go to closing remarks. The time limit, as a reminder, the time limit for answering questions is 2 minutes, and then the timekeepers on here in the front row will be good about demonstrating their signs to us. So, first question, Ms. Rosowski. What experience do you have with education financing? What can you add to experience for dealing with financial challenges?
There we go. Thanks for the question, Mike. So I have a lot of experience dealing with higher education financing, both at an institutional level. I worked as a consultant for a while out of graduate school, where I helped private nonprofit colleges put together their financial aid and scholarship plans and do budget projections based on expected enrollment, retention, completion, to build long-term budget plans for institutions. Of course, frog in my throat now. Also in my current role, I deal with a lot of sort of complicated higher education financing within the state of Minnesota related to appropriations, following what's happening there at the state level, looking at what's happening with different grant programs, federal programs, how that comes in and helps colleges and universities. I'm just learning more about K-12 finance, and had a great meeting with the finance staff at the district recently, because I looked at the formula for higher education per pupil funding in Wisconsin, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so confusing. I don't understand how to calculate it. So had a great meeting, learned a lot about how it works when we look at tax money that comes from the state, and then what the taxpayer is expected to pay to supplement that. And one of the shocking things I recently found out this week was that when you look at the aid that the state of Wisconsin gives to Hudson on a per pupil basis, it's declined by 27% in 10 years. So our school districts is being asked to do the same and more with less money than what they're getting from the state. And I think they've done a pretty good job. I mean, 27% cut, think of that in your family, what that would do, just balancing your family income. So I like to learn, and I like to dig into the numbers, so I think that's what I'll bring to it.
Thank you, Ms. Rosowski. Ms. Logan, I'll ask the question again, just to remind the audience and cue you as to what it is. What experience do you have with education financing? What can you add to experience for dealing with financial challenges?
Thanks. Your question makes me think about my experience when I was in the MBA program, taking an accounting class and being told, we aren't training you to be an accountant, we're training you to read financial statements and ask smart questions. I think that, in my job as a manager of a nonprofit, which has a budget nowhere near the district's $100 million budget, I think that is a good approach to take, is that we really do need to, yes, review the financials and then ask really good questions of our team. One of the benefits of having a larger district is we have really talented staff. We have great staff, many of whom are sitting in this room, by the way. Thank you for being here. But I think to echo Megan's frustration, the way that we fund K-12 schools in Wisconsin is really challenging, and it's especially challenging right now for a community like Hudson, because the formula ends up taking into account how much property wealth is in your district, and the more your property wealth goes up, kind of the less age you get, because the assumption is you can pay for more, and then how many students you have in your system. And as the number of students in your district go down, it's a negative impact. So we have this double whammy going right now where the community of Hudson is growing. The property, both home value and commercial, is growing, but the number of kids in our district is not growing. So that's a challenge that we can't do much with, aside from a complete overhaul to the way schools are funded in the state of Wisconsin. Added on to that is that we are in the business of people. The people we serve are little people, and the people who do that service and comprise about 2/3 of our budget are the adult people in our schools. So it is really tough. I think one of the biggest opportunities we have as a school board and as a district is really then to be communicating with our district and with taxpayers about what the reality is and still what they are getting for their tax dollars. Because we have a great public school system that, yes, our costs are going up, but we are also doing an amazing job with these students, preparing them for a world that they're going to live in 10, 50, 100 years from now. Well, I don't know if any of them will live 100 years from now, and making sure that we have good, strong local folks in our communities. So that's, I guess, what I bring.
Thanks, Ms. Logan. Mr. Lawson, I'll repeat the question. What experience do you have with education financing? What can you add to experience for dealing with financial challenges?
So I have never been on a school board before, have only looked at the school board budget. However, I have been on numerous national, international, local boards for nonprofits. And so I think the significant difference in terms of how do you meet financial challenges is that the school board has to go grab it out of your pocket. A nonprofit has the luxury, if you can call it a luxury, of having to convince somebody that the good that they do is worth the donation that people provide. But in terms of looking at budgets and understanding the financial constraints that you're under and looking for solutions of how you can do things better with less money, I've been doing that for a long time.
Thank you. Ms. Gerlach, what experience do you have with education financing? What can you add to experience for dealing with financial challenges?
Well, I think education financing also works for parents too. So I will speak on that. Sending my kids to a private school and finding a way to make that possible on a tight budget is a big deal. I think in private schools, most of them around here are about $5,000 a kid, and those schools are funded by the parents, and we make our schools work. The public sector, I believe, is somewhere around $15,000 per kid that you're getting through taxpaying dollars. We are severely out of budget. In ways that I think I can add to these challenges, I'm used to working in a tight budget for my jobs. When I do event planning, when I do marketing, there's lots of different areas where I have to stay within budget or beat that budget. And sometimes you have to get really creative to make that happen. That's it, that's my answer.
Thank you. All right, question number 2. This one first goes to Heather Logelin. If you have the mic, you do.
I think you need to shut these.
All right. For the following items, vaccine requirements, fast bridge testing, at-risk behavior surveys, mindsets curriculum, any other non-required student survey, and any optional non-curricular speaker, would you support a streamlined opt-out process for parents, and why?
Could you repeat that list?
You know what I'm gonna do? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna hand it to you, and then you can pass it down. That'll make it easier for everybody to have it in front of them, because there's about six different things that are enumerated.
I think the problem is that these are on also. Can we shut these off? Unplug them?
So the reason I'm hesitating is that the items on this list are really different. Starting with one like vaccine requirements, where there already are processes that are very scripted through which that parents can use, to things that start to get into when is this something that a parent might want to opt out of and when is it not? I mean, I think that in our district right now, the way that we're approaching controversial subjects is that we're notifying parents and we're giving them an opportunity to ask questions and opt out. I don't think there is a way, because of definitions, because what one person might call controversial, someone else calls history, to identify everything that a parent might want to know about and create a streamlined process for opting out. So I'm intrigued by the idea. I can't imagine how we could operationalize it. We obviously want parents to feel like they are involved in and can know as much as they want about what's going on in their kids' school environment, and we need to trust our teachers. We need to set policies at the board level. I read something recently that said the board provides guidelines for curriculum, and teachers are the ones who deliver it. It's not our job as board members to be in the weeds delivering curriculum. So I guess I again feel like we need to, at some level, trust that we have highly educated teachers in our district. We have an incredibly high number of teachers who have degrees that are advanced beyond the bachelor level. They are trained to do their job the same way that nurses are trained to do their jobs, that firefighters are trained to do their jobs. We need to trust them. So we need to keep talking with parents to hopefully create a level of comfort and trust with what's going on, and so they know how they can ask questions and know what's going on. But I don't see a way that we could streamline a process that would meet every parent's needs when it comes to what someone might deem controversial.
Thank you. I'm going to read it again to get it in everybody's mind, because it is a long question, and I'll provide it to Mr. Lawson. For the following items: vaccine requirements, fast bridge testing, at-risk behavior surveys, mindset curriculum, and any other non-required student survey, and any optional non-curricular speaker, would you support a streamlined opt-out process for parents, and why?
This is really easy. I say you inform the parents of exactly what you're talking about and let them opt in, not opt out.
Ms. Gerlach, you have the questions? take your time to review it, and then they'll start the time when you're
It
ready.
is quite the question, isn't it? I would agree that there's a lot to unpack here, and they don't necessarily all belong in that same category. I believe that I would say if they have the option to opt out, that would be great. I also support the idea that if everyone were to say vote on this, that they would have an opportunity to opt in. It's a really touchy topic when you're putting and lumping all of this together. I would be in favor of saying yes to opt out of these things as long as they're being discussed and laid out ahead of time. If we know what's being talked about in the classroom and it's a controversial issue, what is a controversial issue? Just laying out the curriculum so parents can look for themselves, saying, hey, we're going to be in contact with parents a lot more often. Here's what's going on in the classrooms. Here's what your kid's going to be learning about this week. Here's the books we want them to read. And if you look at it and you're going to have to do research as parents and say, I don't want my kid part of this, then pull them out of there. But there needs to be room in the guidelines to make that happen so these kids aren't being penalized when their parents pull them out if that's what they feel is best for them.
Thank you. Ms. Rosowski, do you have the question in mind, or would you like to see it again?
So, like fellow candidates have said, it's a long list. So there's a few things. From my understanding, vaccine requirements, I think the form and the opt-out process is a state of Wisconsin process, and I don't think that the school district is able to overwrite that process. I would guess it's similar for the fast bridge testing. If that's done at the state level, that's probably again some sort of state form. It's not clear. What would a streamlined process be? Is the form available online and easier to submit? That would be one thing, but I don't think you could have a process for all of these things that is one form because they're so different. I think, what I learned recently, and I was looking at the big handbook of policies and reading those last night, and I had a great meeting with Dr. Grambo at the district office, and the district currently has a policy that parents are able to opt their child out of any lesson. They can opt their kid out, and it doesn't have to be a controversial issue. It's human growth and development. In the state of Wisconsin, it's an opt-in. Parents get a notification and they have to opt their children into that. But parents are allowed to choose, for whatever reason it is, some lesson, some unit, some book, they're able to opt their child out, and there are no repercussions for that. That's a parent's right. That's a parent's choice. So I think that is in place in our district, and I'm not sure how you streamline it when we're talking about issues that have state or federal requirements. We just can't get around that as a district. So I can't answer the part about streamlining. I'm sorry, but I tried to answer the other parts.
Okay. Question number 3. This will go to Mr. Lawson first. This concerns the operating referendum, and I don't pretend to have clear knowledge of what that is, and so the people who answer the question may want to define it to help the audience, both here and who are watching at home. So I understand that the operating referendum is also going to be considered at the April election period, and it involves the ability for the district to exceed the revenue cap. That's probably not very helpful to most of us, but that's the basic understanding I have of it. The question is as follows. If the operating referendum does not pass, we could have teacher and staff layoffs, cuts to programs, and increased class sizes. How would you address these budgetary concerns, and how would you prioritize spending? Mr. Lawson?
Well, first off, I'm not in favor of their operating referendum. And the basic reason I'm not in favor of it is because what the school district is telling you is that they don't get enough money to do the job that they're hired to do. And I don't think that's the case. I think the case is that they have not economized in ways that would make them more efficient. What I really find disappointing is how the school board has put this to the parents of Willow River and Holton schools. Going to the parents and saying, we're going to close your schools unless you go out and pass our referendums. To me, that is very unethical, to put the pressure on you as parents to do their work for them. And that's all I have to say about that.
Ms. Gerlach, I'll read it again. If the operating referendum does not pass, we could have teacher and staff layoffs, cuts to programs, and increased class sizes. How would you address these budgetary concerns, and how would you prioritize spending?
Just to clarify, we're only speaking about the $8 million referendum, not the $29 million, correct? So when answering this question, I just want to be sure what I'm answering here. The operating referendum is $8 million. So we're saying if the $8 million one doesn't pass, are you talking about the $29 million one passing also, or no? Okay, so just this one. I am in favor of passing the operational referendum for the $8 million. I think that based on numbers that were given earlier, and I've seen myself, the state has not provided proper funding to match inflation over the last several years. And I know that you can see that these numbers are important and that they're affecting the school. It is not within reason to expect that when when the school district is given a lower operating budget in 1 year to be able to match that new budget and to work within that lower amount. It takes a couple of years to get back up to that same par. So in looking at this, it is a lot easier to see this on paper, for the record, when you can properly evaluate what you're looking at and how to actually put what it is that you need to see in budget, what those expenditures are. I have not seen that list of expenditures on what the overage is. But if I am on this board, I absolutely will take the time to look through those more deeply so I can answer that question a little bit better. But more research is needed on that. I am in favor of that operational referendum.
Thank you. Ms. Rizal?
Thank you. So this wasn't quite the question, but I am strongly in favor of the operating referendum. I know, like I said, that per pupil funding has gone down by 27% over the past 10 years. Our schools have been trying to do more with less. There's not a lot of fat to trim in these budgets, and we're getting great results with what our schools are working with. And unfortunately, because the state isn't doing their part, it shifts the costs further onto local taxpayers through the form of property taxes. But I just want to put the operating referendum in perspective. I think it's important, it's a pain to pay taxes, it's a pain when taxes go up, but if you have a $300,000 house, if both the operating and capital referendum pass, we're talking $84 a year on your taxes, $7 a month. So that's a couple cups of coffee, right? So I can find a way to cut $7 a month if I need to invest in our kids, in our schools, and our next generation of workers, homeowners, our community. I can't think of a better way to spend an extra $7 a month. Where am I gonna get that return? If it doesn't pass, I'm worried. I'm worried about what that impact could be in our schools, and I haven't dug as deeply into the spreadsheets as I would like to yet to understand where cuts could be made, but like I said, there's not a lot of fat in the budgets, and so what would need to be cut could impact our school quality. We could end up with closing Holton and Willow River and having 4 large elementary schools. And then when you start to see the quality of your schools go down, then our property values may start to go down. People won't want to move here. And for most families, and for mine, our home is our biggest investment. That's where we've put our money. That's where, you know, our biggest investment for our family. And so I think strong schools equal strong communities, equal strong economies. And I think at, you know, $7 a month or $12 a month if you have a little bit more expensive house, it's a good bang for your buck.
Thank you. Ms. Logelin?
Well, so I'm a current member of the school board and I voted to send this to referendum. I would not have voted to send it to referendum if I didn't think we need it. So I support the operating referendum. I want to be clear that it's not that the district hasn't been making cuts. We have cut numerous instructional and administrative positions over the last 5 to 10 years. When you look at 2/3 of your budget being your people, do we cut teacher salaries and benefits? Because they're not going to stick around. They can go somewhere else. Right now, we have support staff that we're having a hard time recruiting because it's hard to be competitive with what someone can make if they go work at Quick Trip. I want good people in working with our kids, supporting our professional staff, our certified staff. I would just echo, there's not a lot of excess in our school budgets. And at this point, the board has not actually spent a lot of time or asked staff to spend a lot of time running scenarios, because I'll be honest, we have confidence in this community and we believe this referendum is going to pass. If it doesn't pass, then we'll start to ask staff to come to us with what are the options. Some of the options would be increasing class sizes. Right now we have class size guidelines that we only want 18 to 22 kids in grades K1 and 2, and we'd like to have no more than 28 kids in grades 3, 4, and 5. I don't think we want those class sizes to grow. I don't think we want to stop taking care of our buildings. I don't think we want to turn the heat down in the winter. So I guess I haven't thought a lot, I'll be honest, I haven't thought a lot about, as a school board member, what cuts I would support, because I am confident that this community is going to come through and vote yes for this referendum.
Thank you. Ms. Gerlach will answer the 4th question first. And the 4th question is as follows. What is your plan to attract, retain, and support quality educators in Hudson?
I would first want to look at what they've been doing for advertising and marketing from somebody who does that. A plan to attract, I would say, has to start with teachers feeling comfortable in the school and speaking highly of it. That would attract some other teachers from other districts to want to come here. I think that we also would have a need for parents to support that as well and want to bring their kids here. And that has a lot to do with the education and what they're being taught and what our teachers are being asked to teach. I think that on a side note, we could probably use some billboards up over in the Woodbury area and across the river to start advocating for our schools in other areas, and start seeing some local advertisements come out that would support positive learning in our schools, if that's what, in fact, we are teaching and promoting.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Rosowski. What is your plan to attract, retain, and support quality educators in Hudson?
Thank you. That's a great question. Well, I think one of the clear steps to take is to follow through with, I think it's the Raider compensation plan. A group of teachers recently presented this at a working group meeting for the school board. Teachers have been working on for a while on creating a new compensation plan that moves away from what's currently been done at the district for the past several years. Teachers as a group have come forward to make a plan that they feel will increase morale, will make it clear what steps they can take to increase their, what sort of professional development they will be doing, how they'll get credit for it, and it will feel a little bit more of a cohesive thing amongst teachers instead of fighting, or not fighting, but feeling put up against each other in terms of who gets bonuses which year, who gets a raise when it's a pay for performance. And I think it's very hard to judge performance in some ways in classroom. Like, a teacher can be doing a great job and kids didn't do great on a test, right? So like, how do we measure that? I think we have great dedicated teachers in this district. I think we need to listen to them in terms of what they need. What sort of professional development opportunities are they looking for? What would help them to do better in the classroom? What do they think our kids need? So again, when it's not my area of expertise, I like to talk to the people who are closest to the issue. I'd like to hear what's worked, what hasn't worked, what's worked in other areas, and learn more.
Thank you. Ms. Logelin?
I think we don't underestimate the power of personal relationships. Teachers talk to teachers. With all due respect, I'm not sure billboards are what teachers are looking at when they're looking for jobs. They're talking to friends who have moved to other districts, who are working to other districts. Teachers want to be in a district where they are supported and recognized as professionals. That's what we need to do as a district, is we need to support and recognize that our teachers are professionals who know what they're doing and need support. And yes, of course, they want compensation and benefits that are fair, but beyond that, they want to work in a work environment that feels good. And we have a lot of things in place in Hudson right now that are trying to do that, even in an environment post-Act 10, where we had a lot of teachers leave for Minnesota because they lost a lot of their power at the table as professionals in our district. We have a teacher advisory committee in our district. Teachers are involved with curriculum selection. We recently got the recommendation for our new social studies curriculum, and teachers vote on it. You know, there's a committee of teachers who are involved in the selection and recommendation of curriculum. So I think to make sure that we continue to have great teaching staff in this district, we need to be looking holistically at how does it feel to be a teacher in this district, and do I feel like my work and my success is recognized? And yes, that's student achievement, and that's a lot more than student achievement.
Thank you. Mr. Lawson, and I apologize to Ms. Logelin for not repeating the question prior to, but what is your plan, sir, to attract, retain, and support quality educators in Hudson?
So first off, I don't expect that I can have a plan that right off the bat, because there's a lot of people on the board. But let me tell you exactly how I feel about this. And that is, we run our schools like a commune. We pay the teachers pretty much the same, and there's no incentive to excel. There's no financial incentive to excel. And I was a teacher for, back in the dinosaur age. And I've heard this from teachers since when my parents were teachers and when I was a teacher, and all through my kids being in school, is that there's no way to determine who's a great teacher and how can we incentivize great teachers to do better, what kind of bonuses, et cetera. Most of us, outside of the education system, work in industries where we are incentivized to perform. We're incentivized to accomplish goals. We're incentivized to to make companies profitable. It's the same way in education. If you had teachers who were incentivized to take more students, to do new things, and we paid them for those incentives, merit-based pay has been discussed in education and squashed by the teachers' unions and the teachers' colleges for decades. It's time we change and start incentivizing our teachers to perform.
Thank you. All right, question number 5. I'm going to read this question as it was written, and I think we'll all understand what, yes, back to you. Yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm going to read this question as it was written, and everybody's writing in their laps here, I'm sure. And then I'm going to, I think, try to frame it in the same spirit that the question was intended, in my effort to make it a little bit more clear. But so first of all, as written, and then I'm going to attempt to clarify it. I hope I don't blunder. So the question as written is this: as a school board member, how would you work to ensure secrets about children, such as gender identity, are not kept from their parents? And I guess maybe the way I would have phrased it, perhaps, and I don't want to change the question, and that's why I read the original one, but as a school board member, how would you work to ensure that confidential information about children, such as gender identity, is shared with their parents?
Well, this is a complicated question, and I know that this has been a source of a lot of discussion at school board meetings. I think that I understand why parents are concerned about the policy that if a child speaks to a teacher or a counselor about questions about their gender identity, that the parent is upset that the school is not telling them right away. I'm a parent. I love to think that my kids will come to me with anything when they're teens, when they're working through something difficult. But I also remember being a teenager, and my mom, who's here, was a very open, accepting mom who said, you could come talk to me about anything. And she meant it. But I still didn't sometimes. You're a teenager, you got a teenage brain, and even things like when I thought about quitting marching band, I went and talked to a teacher about it first. It can be big things, it can be small things, right? But to me, if my kid isn't gonna feel comfortable coming to talk to me about something that's big in their life, I want them to have another adult to go to. I want them to have another adult, a teacher, a counselor, an aunt, an adult to go to who will help them feel better, who will tell them that they are loved, that they are important, who will help remind them, your parents are there for you. How can we help you talk to your parents? Because the counterfactual of telling kids, if you talk to a teacher about your gender identity, isn't, oh, I'm gonna go tell mom and dad, because they're scared to go tell mom and dad sometimes. It doesn't mean mom and dad did anything wrong, but it can be scary to talk about big things. The counterfactual is the kid may lay alone at night in their bed with that icky feeling in their belly, with feeling bad about something. I don't want any kid to fall asleep at night feeling like that. I don't want any kid to just have internet chat rooms to turn to when they're trying to work through something. I don't want a kid to carry around a secret that they're maybe not ready to tell their parents yet, when talking to another trusted adult could give them the confidence and the support they need and help them move forward to that conversation with their parents.
Thank you. I'll ask the question again. It's Logan. As a school board member, and this is the edited version, as a school board member, would you work to ensure confidential information about children, such as gender identity, is shared with their parents?
I think this is a case where it is really hard, because even as I've talked with folks who, in general, are really supportive of kids going through tough times, including kids who are LGBTQ, kids who are questioning their gender, even some of those parents have said to me, but Heather, if it was my kid, I'd want to know. So I get that. I'm a parent. I have a 16-year-old. I have a 20-year-old. I would hope they would come talk to me. At the same time, I would hope that if they didn't think they could come talk to me, they could lean on the staff at our schools who are really well-trained to support kids and encourage kids and help them build up the confidence to go talk to their parents. And I would hope that throughout that process, that kid could be treated and respected at their place, at the place where they are right then. So I think to talk about, and I mean, the question was asked with words that point, keeping secrets. This isn't about keeping secrets from parents. Our school district is trying at every level to engage parents. Our school district is trying to help kids get ready to bring their parents in to really tough conversations. And in the rare case where a kid is dealing with something that they really feel like, I can't talk to my parent about this, I don't think we should be forcing that. I just would end with a statistic. We've referenced the Youth Risk Behavioral Survey. The most recent data from that survey came out recently. LGBTQ students were nearly 4 times as likely as their heterosexual peers to attempt suicide within the past year, with more than 2 in 10 students reporting this experience. I would never want our school's inability to support a kid to be the reason that we had a kid attempt suicide. We need to be supportive.
Thank you. Mr. Lawson, I'll read it again. As a school board member, would you work to ensure confidential information about children, such as gender identity, is shared with their parents?
The easy answer to that is absolutely. I think Heather probably explained this really well in terms of the difficulty of the situation like this. But my feeling is completely different from Heather's, because these kids usually grow out of this by the time they're through puberty. But by sending them to a counselor, the National Association of School Counselors has been training counselors how to keep this from the parents. And so I don't trust the counselors because of what's been coming out of the National Association of School Counselors. But these kids are at risk. These kids are at risk. This is incredibly risky behavior that most kids grow out of. And even adults who've gone through transition, the latest studies say 30% of the adults who go through transition regret that they've gone through this procedure. I think there needs to be adults in the room that can explain to them that this is something that people grow out of. This is something that people regret having gone through. And my personal feeling is the reason people are suicidal is because they have done something that's biologically antithetical to who they are.
Thank you. Ms. Gerlach, as a school board member, would you work to ensure confidential information about children, such as gender identity, is shared with their parents?
I think the school needs transparency with the parents. This is a really slippery slope that we are on, and we do not need to be putting teachers, we shouldn't be putting teachers and staff in that kind of a position to hide or skirt issues from parents that are important. Parents trust the schools to educate our kids while they're within those walls, not counsel them. However, students do need to feel safe and supported, and they need to have somebody other than a parent once in a while to talk to. That's okay. It's when the talking becomes every day and there's a bigger issue at hand and the parents aren't getting involved in it. I think that we need to have that transparency, and where that line is drawn, I'm not sure, but maybe a second conversation, if it comes back up, is where that needs to be, And I would really hope that whoever is giving advice at the school is going to be helping these kids to learn how to have tough conversations, because being a kid is really tough and being an adult is very tough. And we have to educate these kids so they can talk to their bosses about things later on in life. They can talk to their parents, and we need to give parents an opportunity to love their children and be there and to support their children before the school gets too far involved in it.
Thank you. All right, next question will be to Ms. Laugelin first. And I didn't even know this was a thing. Shows you how out of touch I am. Sign of the times, I think this must have to do with internet learning and just busy parents. It has to do with snow day learning. When I was a kid, that was called going sliding. But it's a real concern, I guess, on people's mind. It's up here in the sheets. The question is this, Ms. Laugelin. How would you like to see snow day policy learning handled?
I'm going to take a leap and assume that that question is asking, how would we like to see snow days handled, making up for snow days, not snow day learning policy.
I'm just
So anyway.
reading the question literally,
Yes,
and
okay.
it struck me
Okay,
as odd.
so we, as you all know, it's been a winter. In fact, if any of you have campaign signs in your yards, they might have been pummeled by snowplows the other night, so pick them back up. So we've had to make some adjustments, right? And so we do build into our school calendar. We build days in because we live in Wisconsin, so we assume there might be a few snow days. The question is really about what happens when there are more snow days than we'd expect. Over the last 10 years, I think Dr. Ouellette shared at a recent board meeting that over the last 10 years, there have only been 2 years, they just both happen to be recent, where we've had this problem, where we've had more snow days than we had built into the cushion of the day. So there are a lot of different options, and although if you were looking on social media, you might think that the school district did not consider any of them, but in fact, administration considered a lot of options and made a recommendation, kind of the least bad of bad options. So we looked into, as an example, do we extend the end of the year? Do we push the end of the year out? Which is tough if people already have plans for the end of the year. One of my staff members said, my kid won't be there, he'll be at hockey camp. So people plan for the year, right? Another option is to send kids to school on days where we didn't plan to have school, and we've done some of that. So we took away some days that were planned non-school days. Another option is to extend the school day and build extra minutes in, which is the option we went with. And then a final option is to look at remote learning. There are a lot of folks who don't understand why we're not doing remote learning because other districts are doing it. The reason we're not doing remote learning is because it's not equitable. It's because not all kids have internet access. Little kids, how do you do remote learning with first and second graders? Give them a packet to color? Is that really instruction? Is that making up for time in a classroom with teachers? So what we are going to do next year is that we're going to, at the beginning of the year, have a plan for the whole year that lets parents know, here's what we're going to do if we go beyond the days, so that at least parents can know that and build that into their planning. And I support that plan. That's what I would do.
Thank you.
You guys have done an awesome job with the snow stuff. If you haven't been to a school board meeting, this topic is discussed almost every school board meeting because of the winter we've had. And Heather just pointed out the problem is that everybody has a different idea of what they want their kids to do. And so you're going to disappoint 2/3 of the students no matter what you decide to do. And so I don't think there's, I do agree you guys are doing a great job at trying to work through that.
Ms. Gerlach?
Can you just ask the original question? I'm a little confused as to what we're answering here.
I'll read it literally.
Could you please?
Yeah, and how would you like to see snow day policy learning handled?
Well, the first thing I would do is survey the parents, so we get an idea of what this 2/3 looks like that other people have mentioned up here. And the second thing then I would do is take away early releases. That's pretty normal. And lastly, for the following school year, I would be building more snow days into the schedule, so we don't have to necessarily do the online learning. I would agree, after sitting through these school board meetings, listening to a lot of comments, there is not a one-size-fits-all for this. Virtual learning is not something little kids are well-versed at. And extra homework packets are very frustrating for parents who have 9-to-5 jobs and aren't even there with their kids. This is a really tough thing. I think personally the best solution is to leave snow days as fun days for kids, and parents are already stressed out enough trying to find childcare for their kids that day, and if you throw extra learning in on it, are we really getting a benefit? I don't know. That's why I would like to survey the parents, and I would also like to look at what other districts are doing and how they're handling it, because it just doesn't look the same for pre-K and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus what the high schoolers are doing. Everybody thinks that it's so easy to do virtual learning. Well, that's because the upper grades are on a virtual program, but do you want your kids sitting at home on the internet and screwing up in class? I've seen how these virtual things have gone. I was not very impressed with it, and I really didn't feel my kid was learning anything. So I think we need to be careful with that and stick to fun things on those days.
Thank you, Ms. Rosowski.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a little bit of what everybody else said. I mean, the look on my kid's face every time there's a snow day. I mean, think back. You feel like you won the lotto, right? And like when we were kids, we'd have to sit and you'd watch at the bottom of the screen, and you're like, oh, they called Ellsworth. Are we next? You know, and it's like it is fun for kids to just get that prize and play outside and build snowmen, and I don't want to take that away from kids. That's their lottery, right? And then I have a second grader and a 3-year-old, and I'm able to work from home, and so I'm able to do some work still. But if I had to manage making sure my second grader was doing the things she needed to do on her computer at certain times, while I'm trying to do my meetings, while I'm trying to stop the 3-year-old from like pushing the Chromebook over, like, it would be such a nightmare. Instead of like, okay, why don't you go outside and play for a little while, and then we'll have cocoa, and then you can watch Frozen. And yes, it's a bummer to add 10 minutes to the beginning and the overall to the end of the day, but it's 10 minutes, 5 to the beginning, 5 to the end. I mean, my kid's walking out to the bus 5 minutes earlier, she's getting home 5 minutes later. I think the school district has done a good job with this. There is no easy answer. If they could control the weather, they don't want to shovel and snow blow anymore either, right? Like, we are all done with this, but, you know, you never know what winter's going to bring us in Wisconsin, right?
Very good, thank you. So I think under the rules we outlined at the beginning, we have time for one more question and answer. And I've got about 6 or 8 more questions than I'll be able to get to. And so I, was told in the rules that I have the discretion to not necessarily take them in order if time considerations permit. The question I selected is one that seems to be a pretty common theme among a number of the submitted questions, and it's brief, and so I'll ask it. And it goes to Mr. Lawson first, and the question is this: what are your priorities for supporting our students' mental health?
To me, this is really easy. We do not have mental health professionals in the school district. We have school counselors. You refer mental health issues to a mental health professional.
Ms. Gerlach?
One more time.
Pardon me?
Could you read it again?
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have. What are your priorities for supporting our students' mental health?
I think that all kids need to feel welcomed and accepted at school. I think that teachers and staff need to feel welcomed and accepted at school. Going out of our way to teach kindness, going out of way to bring in speakers that can speak on these issues to kids. Maybe find somebody in there that could make an impact even on 2 or 3 students would be helpful. I think that kids don't need to be bombarded with social issues that are surrounding our school right now, and that makes even positive kids unhappy. It makes positive teachers unhappy. And I think we need to get back to focusing on reading, writing, and arithmetic, and life skills, and working on friendships and being kind to one another. I think that that's what's going to help mental health, is putting that in that positive attitude, giving high fives to students down the hallways, saying kind things to one another. Slowly but surely you'll get there.
Thank you. Ms. Rosowski, I'll read it again while they're passing the mic. What are your priorities for supporting our students' mental health?
It's a great question. I am not a mental health professional. I am very concerned about mental health of students. The Youth at Risk survey, Heather had referred to it earlier, it showed that up to 25% of female students in Wisconsin had seriously considered suicide in the past year. For LGBTQ students, it was almost 50%. The COVID years were hard, right? People were stressed out. The economy, you didn't know what was going to happen. People were losing their jobs. Parents were stressed. Teachers were stressed. Kids were stressed, right? It's been a rough few years, and I think the world is a big, stressful place, and kids feel it, right? They feel that when they're out in the world. So I think it's really important that we create a safe, welcoming environment for all students in our school. I think bullying is an issue that needs to be worked on. You're never going to stop teasing, right? It's always going to happen. But I think we need to make sure that we're making sure all our students feel safe at school so that they can learn. Because I know when I'm somewhere and I'm really nervous, I can't do my best job. So how does that feel when you're 12, 13, 5 years old, right? I think that we do have great counselors in our schools. I think they do great life skills, and I would include learning how to handle your emotions as part of your life skills. Like my kid has done worksheets that just show what to keep in your head and what to say out loud when you're mad, and they cut it out and they paste it on the side of the paper. And like, yes, that's busy work, but you got to work on your scissor skills in first grade, right? And it's just these things of our feelings go with us everywhere we go, and learning how to manage our feelings will help us in our lives in school and professionally, and help allow us to be happier people.
Thank you. Ms. Logelin, what are your priorities for supporting our students' mental health?
So I would start by saying I'm really proud of the work that the Hudson School District is already doing to support student mental health across the spectrum, from prevention, identification and early intervention, to referral. Because Randy is right, we don't have all of the right staff in our schools. I will also tell you there are not enough professionals outside of our schools to deal with all the students who have mental health diagnoses and mental health issues, especially if you're including kind of regular common diagnoses like depression and anxiety. I think on the prevention side, the work that Megan's talking about is so important, and I know it's the work of every elementary classroom teacher, that while they are teaching kids, yes, to read, write, and compute, they are also teaching them how to be good people, how to be able to name their emotions, how to communicate and cooperate with other people, and those are the soft skills that employers are saying they are looking for today. They are looking for employees who can collaborate, who can communicate, who can pivot when things get rough, and we're teaching our kids that starting in kindergarten. Identification and intervention, mental health first aid is something that we are offering to staff, we are offering to high school students. It is not pretending that as a mental health first aid interventionist, you know anything about mental health that's treatment oriented. It's kind of like regular first aid. If you come across someone who appears to be struggling, how can you help get them connected with the resource that's going to help? intervention and treatment. We do have some in-school professional staff, and we have staff who come into our schools to provide school-based mental health services, especially for those kids who might not otherwise be able to access those services, either because of insurance limitations or because of transportation challenges. And yes, we are referring kids to providers outside of the schools as well. I think to pretend that we can just stop dealing with kids' mental health issues within the walls of our K-12 environment is not realistic with today's world and the challenges that today's kids are facing. Again, I'm not saying we should be all of these kids' therapists. I'm saying that we need to be working both proactively and in an identification and referral phase to make sure that kids who need outside treatment get it, and that kids can benefit from supports inside the schools are getting that as well.
Thank you. All right, that does it for the Q&A. And now each of the candidates have an opportunity to give a 3-minute close. You might remember at the outset, tonight identified the candidates right to left: Megan Rosowski, Heather Logelin, Randy Lawson, Aaron Gerlach, and that's how they will appear on the spring election ballot, I'm told. Let's flip it for closing arguments to give Ms. Gerlach the opportunity for primacy, and then we'll just come left to right down the panel.
Great. Thank you to the parent groups for coming up with these questions and organizing this event. And thank you to Willow River for hosting. And our moderator, you've been great. Thank you for filtering those questions and making what you do of them. And for everybody at home watching and who took time out of their night for coming tonight. Education is the most important thing our children should be focused on while they are in school. I am passionate about our kids getting the education that they need in order to thrive and prepare for their futures. We need to get back to basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, and life skills, and getting these kids in and out of high school to be able to function in society, to hold a job, to have tough conversations with their parents and their peers, because as I said earlier, being a kid is tough, being an adult is way tougher, and they need to be ready for it. The next few years are going to be really challenging in Hudson as we navigate through some serious budget issues, staffing needs, potential school closures, which I am not in favor of, to include the boundary line changes, which I have been part of before, while continuing to support our children. It is so important that our school board is being very careful with spending money that is not theirs. Transparency with our children's education and costs, and represent the parents and taxpayers of the Hudson community. Talking about closing schools gets parents really fired up, and I see a lot of parents very engaged, and I want to thank those parents groups for being active and getting involved, presenting the ideas and the potential solutions to the board that you have. They need your help. Please continue to do that. On April 4th, you have the opportunity to vote for new school board members. If you want to see change, I encourage you to do just that. My name is Erin Gerlach. I'm running for the school board, gerlachforhudson.com.
Thank you. Randy Lawson?
I too would like to thank everybody who came out this evening and to hear what we had to say. And I also want to give my appreciation to the other school board candidates. This is an interesting thing that we have jumped into, and you really don't know what you're getting into when you start this. But I'll conclude with what I was mentioning when we started, and that is that I believe that the thing that is most important within this school district is school choice. That there are 1 out of 8 students whose parents feel like they are not getting the service through a public school and decided to go elsewhere to get their education. That most usually when I talk to them, it has to do with religious or moral reasons that they've taken their children out of the Hudson Public Schools. And that tells me that the social contract that we have as a community with our schools is broken, or at least breaking. We have to find a way. Everybody deserves a public school education. with public funds, if we decide that we're going to have curriculum and activities that violate the religious or moral convictions of a family, the school district needs to write that parent a check when they leave the school district so that they have a choice. We don't have to wait for the state to tell us we're going to have school choice. The correct thing to do as good neighbors is if we decide we're going to have a public education system that doesn't accommodate you, the good and moral thing to do is to say, here, go where you want to go, and we'll write you a check. Or we can develop a magnet school here. Take one of the elementary schools and make it a classic academy, where it's only academics. We don't have any of the things that are causing parents difficulties with the current school system. You create a magnet school of a classic academy. When I mention that to people when I'm out talking about this school board race, the reaction I get is, that would fill up in 5 minutes.
Ms. Logelin?
Thanks. So running for re-election to school board, people ask you, why are you running for re-election? But they don't ask it like that. They either ask, so why are you running for re-election? Or they say, why are you running for re-election? I would say that while there isn't a single issue that initially sparked my interest in running for school board or that is keeping me running now, I do want to acknowledge that there are a couple of really tough issues that drove my decision to run again, because I feel passionately about the need to address them, and I think I'm a good person to do that. One is definitely financial sustainability. One is attracting and retaining great staff. And the other is continuing to strengthen the work that we're doing with academic and career planning. Financial stability is no surprise. We've talked already this evening about the financial challenges, and we need to continue to find a way to provide a great 4K through 12 experience to all students within our district, within the financial boundaries set by the state, through their funding formula, and our community through its willingness to have taxes raised. Attracting and retaining staff is another clear priority. We know that quality instruction is the single largest predictor of students' outcomes. We have a great staff here. Our challenge is to continue to provide them with a work environment and with rewards and recognition that make them want to stay. Finally, our world is changing, and we need to be preparing our kids for the world they're going to be living and working in 10, 25, 50 years, not basing our decisions on documents from 250 years ago. The world is very different. We need to make sure that our academic and career planning program is constantly changing to prepare kids for success after high school, and that whatever path a kid chooses, whether it's a 4-year university or a technical school or military, they feel like their choice is validated and supported, and they are prepared to be successful in that career path, because we all benefit when our kids are ready to be contributing, competent, confident members of our society. Those are 3 of the most important reasons I'm running for school board. I'm running for school board, though, not for my kids, not for the kids I know, not for my neighbor kids. I'm running for school board for all the kids in this community, because we need to make sure that our district works for all of them.
Thank you. Ms. Rosowski?
Thanks. So I am running for school board for a whole slew of reasons, and I think I'd be a good asset to the board. I think that my experience in education policy and research, my number crunching, data nerd tendencies that'll send me down rabbit holes in spreadsheets and try to find what some other district has done and look up a recent research paper. Like, I like to find data to support what works. And I like to talk to the people who are on the ground with our students to find out what they need. I like to talk to parents to hear about what they think that would help their kids in school. What do they like to see change? And I think that it's important, it's hard with little kids to be doing this while working full-time, running for school board, but I think it is helpful to have someone with young kids, kids in our community elementary schools. My kids are going to be in these schools for a long time, looking along the way. Because, you know, sort of like whatever age your kids are, that's what's in your mind. When they're in middle school, you're the middle school stuff. And when you're in high school, it's the high school stuff. And it's hard to remember what it was like when they were 4 or 5 years old. I'm extremely passionate about education and believe that it is the key to a thriving economy, democracy, and for opportunity. We can provide quality education that gives all of our kids the access and opportunity to the post-high school career that would work for them. And like Heather said, I agree. We need to make it clear, any path that's right for this kid, we support. You want to go in the military? That's great. You want to go to a 4-year college and then go become a veterinarian? That's great. How do we help you find what's going to align with your skills and interests? What's going on at the VOTEC school? I just think that we also really need to make sure we have a school that at all of our schools where all of our kids feel safe. Society, and even Hudson Society, we are not monolithic. We have families of different religious backgrounds, different practices, people who believe different things. And it's sort of like, feel like my kids start to learn professionalism at school, right? With a second grader, it's like no potty talk at school, like it's at home. But as time goes on, you need to work with people different from you. You do not know who is going to interview you. You do not know who your boss is going to be, who your coworkers are going to be, who your client's going to be. If you don't agree with the way people live their lives, you zip your lip about it, you get the job done with someone, you mind your manners, and you learn to work on a project together. And that's what a democracy and a pluralistic society is, when we have all the freedom to live the way that we want to live. And that's what makes this country super exciting. That's what makes the world so exciting. And it also makes it a little scary that we're different from each other. So, but I'm not scared. I don't want to end on that's what makes it scary sometimes, but I think it's what makes it beautiful as well.
All right, very good. That concludes tonight's candidate forum. I'd like to add just a personal note. I really have an admiration for people who are willing to serve and people who care about the public good. All 4 of these candidates, it appears to me, meet those criteria, and I'm thankful for that. I want to thank the audience. Also, thanks. I hope it was for this audience and whomever might watch it on the cable television that it was interesting, it was helpful, let people have information about the decisions that they need to make coming up in April. We heard different perspectives, but it was a polite conversation, and that's heartening to me. So thanks to you, thanks to these guys, and good luck in April, everybody.